How to report the inventory GPC sheet. It is the place reporting government tracks the greenhouse gas inventory within its geographic boundary according to the requirement of GPC, Protocol for Community Scale Greenhouse Gas Emissions. If you face difficulty to fill in the inventory according to GPC, you can download the simplified version from the login landing page. If you wish to report greenhouse gas emission from government operation, please use Sheet 7 GHG Inventory Government Sheet. For understanding the difference between community and government operation inventories, please go to the video What is the Boundary on the carbonn.org/support page. Open this sheet, you will see the English name for the reporting entity is pre-populated. If you do not see this information, you're using an outdated reporting form. Please log into your account for the corrected sheet. Why should I use GPC standard to build a greenhouse gas inventory? GPC inventory is a community performance tracked according to Global Protocol for Community Scale Greenhouse Gas Emission Inventories, a globally recognized standard for community-scale greenhouse gas inventories. It ensures credibility and comparability of communities' inventory for enhanced vertical integration with subnational and national levels of government, and notably accounts for the 7 gases listed in the Kyoto Protocol. GPC-compliant inventory is required by the Compact of Mayors and recommended by the One Planet City Challenge and other initiatives. We highly recommend entities report for GPC-compliant inventory. ICLEI offers GPC training to local and subnational government. Please contact us via carbonn@iclei.org for more information. Inventory year. The inventory year is the historical year against which performance is tracked in terms of total greenhouse gas emissions. Please note that the inventory year is the year emissions occurred, not necessarily the year the inventory is made. For example, if a city is compiling a greenhouse gas inventory in 2015, using the data from 2011 to record the emissions emitted from that year, 2011, the inventory year will be 2011, reflecting the time of occurring of the emissions, not 2015 when the inventory was made. Geographic boundary. GPC requires the local or regional government to report a geographic boundary that identifies the spatial dimension or physical parameter of the inventory's boundary. Please indicate here if the inventory boundary matches the administrative area of the reporting entity, which is defined in the account information page. If not, please specify the exclusion and/or addition to the administrative boundary in the descriptive box below. Land area, population, and GDP. To better assess the reported greenhouse gas emissions inventory, please provide the necessary background, namely land area, population, and GDP, which are important benchmarking indicators for comparison, contrast, and learning. GHG emissions reported and supporting documents. Besides reporting quantitative inventory information below, the CCR recommends user to submit a quantitative summary of their greenhouse gas inventory. Covenant of Mayor signatory cities can directly upload a Covenant of Mayor baseline inventory report. Other GPC users can upload greenhouse gas emission inventory reports, including activity data and emission factors. Compact of Mayor committed cities are required to upload activity data and emission factors here. Scope 3 emissions. The GPC categorizes emissions by sources and by scopes. Scope 3 emissions count for all other greenhouse gas emissions that occur outside of the city boundary as a result of activities taking place within the city boundary. Counting for Scope 3 emissions requires more comprehensive data collection and higher government capacity. It also presents the level of commitment of government has made to account for and manage all greenhouse gas emissions which have resulted from in-boundary activities. Please upload your Scope 3 emissions. This will serve as an example to peer cities and regions for developing Scope 3 emissions inventories in the future. Comments on your inventory. Should you have any other qualitative comments on the reported inventory, especially regarding changes from the latest reported inventory, please record them in the following boxes. Though not required, those descriptive boxes provide users more freedom to elect their inventory status and processes. Your descriptive text can help us better understand your report. They will also provide us with a basis to demonstrate your inventory as a model to other local governments. In the CCR's biannual digest or on our website, link to relevant initiatives such as the One Planet City Challenge and the Compact of Mayors, or on NATSCA. Verification and comments. City may choose to verify their greenhouse gas emissions inventory to demonstrate that it has been developed in accordance to the requirements of the GPC and provide assurance to users that it presents a robust, transparent, and comprehensive account of their city or region's greenhouse gas emissions. This can be used to increase the credibility of publicly reported emissions information with external audience and in turn increases confidence and potential investments based on the data used to develop climate action plans, set greenhouse gas targets, and track progresses. While verification is often undertaken by an independent organization, a third-party verifier, this may not always be the case. Many governments interested in improving their greenhouse gas inventories may undergo a process of internal verification by members of staff which has been independent from the greenhouse gas accounting and reporting process. It is called self-verification. Both types of verification should follow similar procedures and processes. For external stakeholders, third-party verification is likely to significantly increase the credibility of the greenhouse gas inventory. However, a self-verification process can also provide valuable assurance over the reliability of information. In this section, please indicate your verification status, report an external verifier, if any, as well as the year of verification, and comment on the future plan of verification, if any. Please notice that we are expecting the organization of the verification entity instead of the specific name. How to report data in the GPC template. The GPC requires cities to report emissions by gas, scope, sector, and subsector. Emission sources under GPC. What to report? According to the GPC, greenhouse gas emissions from local and subnational entities shall be classified into 6 main sectors: stationary energy, transportation, waste, agriculture, forestry, and other land use, industrial processes, and project use. Other Scope 3 emissions. Stationary energy emissions are the emissions from fuel combustion as well as fugitive emissions released in the process of generating, delivering, and consuming useful form of energy, such as electricity or heat. Transportation records emissions from combusting fuel or consuming grid delivered electricity in transport vehicles and mobile equipment or machinery. Waste emissions through aerobic or anaerobic treatment of waste and wastewater are reported here. Please note that emissions from energy consumption at waste treatment facilities are reported under stationary energy sector, commercial and institutional buildings and facilities subsector. Industrial processes and product use (IPPU). All greenhouse gas emissions occurring from industrial processes, product use, and non-energy uses of fossil fuel are reported here. Please note that emissions from energy consumption at industrial facility are reported under stationary energy sector, commercial and institutional building and facilities subsector. Agriculture, forestry, and other land use are follow. Greenhouse gas emissions through a variety of pathways, including land use, changes that alter the composition of the soil, methane produced in the digestive processes of livestock, and nutrient management for agriculture purposes are reported here. Please note that emissions from energy consumption at agricultural facilities are reported under stationary energy sector, commercial and institutional buildings and facilities subsector. Other Scope 3 emissions are any other emissions occurring outside the geographic boundary as a result of city activities within the boundary. To understand the detailed emission categorization, please consult the GPC document, which you can download from carbonn.org/support page. Gases, data quality and comments. How to report. In this table, we listed all the emission sources according to the GPC. For each emission source, please report the greenhouse gases, its CO2 equivalents, and assess the quality and activity data and the emission factor. Please note that, according to the GPC, greenhouse gas emissions shall be reported in metric tons and expressed by gas as CO2, CH4, N2O, HFCs, PFCs, SF6, and NF3, and by CO2 equivalent, CO2e. CO2 equivalent can be determined by multiplying each gas by its respective global warming potential, GWP. Here we do not provide an automatic converting function between each greenhouse gas and total CO2 equivalent, CO2e. The user shall choose the appropriate GWP, global warming potential, described in the GPC Chapter 5, and report the converted CO2 equivalent in the CO2 column. Please make sure that your city and regional government fill in both the emission by different gases and by CO2 equivalent. The Compact of Mayor compliant cities are required to express emissions as CO2e as well as at least the following individual gases: CO2, CH4, and N2O. The quality of activity data and emission factors are measured by the data source. Please indicate the data source from the drop-down list here. This indication is a Compact of Mayor compliance requirement. Finally, users are required to disclose their choice of methodology, the exclusion of emissions, or other comments in the text box. For more information on the choice of accounting methodology, please refer to Appendix C of the GPC protocol. To accommodate limitations in the data availability and differences in emission sources between reporting entities, the GPC requires the use of the following notation keys to justify the absence of required emission sources, as recommended in the IPCC guidelines. Where notation keys are used, Cities shall provide an accompanying explanation to justify exclusion or partial accounting of the greenhouse gas emission source. Please make sure that the descriptive box is filled when your city chooses to use a notation key. How to calculate total emissions? The GPC requires adding up emissions via two distinct but complementary approaches. The scope framework helps to differentiate emissions occurring physically within the city, scope 1, from those occurring outside of the city, scope 3, and from those used the electricity, steam, and heating cooling supplied by the grid, which may or may not occur within the city, scope 2. Scope 1 emission may also be termed as territorial emission because they occur within the territory defined by the geographic boundary. City-induced framework. This totals emissions attributable to activities taking place within the geographic boundary of the city. It covers selected scope 1, 2, and 3 emission sources representing the key emitting sources occurring in almost all cities and for which standardized methods are generally available. These distinct but complementary approaches allow reporting entities to have comprehensive understanding of their total emissions, city-induced, while avoiding double counting and miscounting in inventory aggregation and comparison using the territorial approach. This colorful table is designed to facilitate users to report via two approaches. This first column lists the names of emission sources and different sectors and subsectors. Besides that, you will see the emission scope indicated in brackets. In addition, GPC framework is color-coded to help you report. The green emission sources are required for basic level. The green and blue emission sources are required for basic plus. The orange or yellow represents sources included in other scope 3. The red or purple sources are required for territorial total but not for the city-induced framework. By inserting one value, you can see that it is automatically calculated in the summary table above.